Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Doctor Who review. Yes, today I'm going to be reviewing the first ever Doctor Who story to ever have been made by the BBC back in 1963, An Unearthly Child, starring William Hartnell in his first ever appearance as the Doctor. Yes, basically, I thought with the recent news of Peter Capaldi's departure from the role of the 12th Doctor, I thought it best to go back and essentially, well, revamp my Doctor Who reviews. Um, I'm not particularly sure about the new Who ones, but I'm definitely going to delve more into the classic era, which is most of what I haven't seen as of yet, um, which I feel quite bad about. So, yeah, let's start where it starts. An Unearthly Child. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. So, I'm just going to read the synopsis from the back of the DVD. Susan Foreman is a mystery to teachers Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright, seemingly knowing more than she should about the past and the future. Their curiosity leads them to follow her home one night, only to find that her home appears to be a deserted junkyard. In the junkyard, they discover a police telephone box and a strange old man who claims to be Susan's grandfather and calls himself the Doctor. The journey of a lifetime is about to begin. Oh yes, in more ways than you can imagine. So, An Unearthly Child, yeah, that's pretty much it for the plot. It's the very first ever Doctor Who story that was ever created, and yeah, it's good. It's a good start. I mean, it's kind of strange. I mean, if you looked back in it now, you wouldn't initially think that this particular idea would work as a Doctor Who story, but it does, more or less. I can't say it's perfect, but and obviously it is massively dated now, but you certainly have to appreciate it for what it is. I mean, and it is the first story, so you can't, the I cannot stress enough that, appreciation has to be given here for the BBC and also for William Hartnell for almost, going with a show that probably wasn't going to work. I mean, they probably didn't even know what was going to happen. I don't think it really took off to the next story, but we'll review that next time. As for this story, yeah, I like it. It's good. I think what really makes this work is the characters, of course. Of course, let's start where it starts. William Hartnell as the Doctor, the first Doctor, the one who defined the role for television. And I believe, yeah, he's very good. He's definitely a more serious Doctor than he is more comedic. You can definitely tell he's an alien. You can tell there's something odd about him, and that Ian and Barbara they at first don't really get along with him, but they start to work with him as the story progresses. And it's interesting when they first meet the Doctor. That's probably one of the best scenes of the story. I mean, because they think he's just mad. So you definitely get the feeling this guy is very alien-like. Obviously, his true identity is yet his true sort of race is yet to be revealed as the show will go on. And yeah, there's a lot of tension between him, Barbara, and Ian, which is very nice. And Susan as well. Carole Ann Ford is fantastic as Susan. She is probably the best, if not one of the best companions. Not just saying that because she's his granddaughter, but she generally has a sort of a rebellious spunk about her. I mean, even at the beginning when she's listening to her music, you can tell, okay, she's somebody who's quite rebellious, typical teenager. But she's brave, she's loyal. She's obviously scared for the life of her as, the cavemen attack her, but she's always loyal, and that's what I like about her. Barbara and Ian are very interesting characters because essentially they are the audience characters. By that I mean people who we would be essentially if we were in that situation, and they definitely provide some interesting reactions to this. They are the first official companions, along with Susan, to travel with the Doctor. When they see this, when they travel in time, they can't quite believe it. They can't, being teachers, they can't quite comprehend the science behind all of this, and also the the possibilities behind it, and also the Doctor himself. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics in this story. That being said, the story's very simple. I don't mind that really. I mean, I think the weird thing is with this story that kind of bogs it down is the whole idea of the cavemen. Um, Basically, the cavemen want to make a fire, and along the way, the Doctor, Barbara, Ian, and Susan get caught up in all of this, and they get captured, and then they don't, and they have to help the cavemen make the fire. It's pretty basic, um, and it's a bit of a strange idea. I mean, they spend a lot of time trying to explain the whole story with the cavemen when it's like when most of it comes across as filler. You don't need to spend that amount of time, talking about fire. I didn't really care when it came to those scenes. I honestly didn't care. This episode, I was only interested in the four main characters. The cavemen didn't really do it for me at all. I don't mind them in this story, but I just don't think that maybe it wasn't appropriate to start with the cavemen and maybe just start with the Dalek story, which is obviously the next story. But there we go. I mean, they take up so much of the story. At times, it does become a little bit slow. The pacing of this isn't the best. I must say they do have some scenes that drag at parts. I mean, the story's not like too long or anything. It's reasonably lengthed out. At four parts. Well, five if you include the pilot part. But yeah, it's kind of strange, but it's the first story, so I'm not gonna knock it too much. I'm gonna let it pass. But I think honestly they should have chosen different antagonists. Having cavemen, I don't know, it just plays it a bit too safe. I mean, they didn't take many risks in this story, but they will go on to take bigger risks in later stories, so I'm not gonna knock them for it. Absolutely not. I love the TARDIS. This is the first TARDIS that we obviously see, and it's great. I mean, obviously it's in black and white, so it's very, you can't really appreciate the architecture as much as the later ones, but it's a good starting point for how obviously because it will change over the years. But as for the first one, it's pretty good, and it's pretty spacious actually. And yeah, I mean, I do like the story. I do find that at times it also is a little bit too sinister. It's not necessarily dark. I wouldn't say that. It's a little bit like bloody and sinister. Like there's the guy with an open scratch wound, and all these shots of the skulls and the dead animals. Ooh, it's a little bit depressing. A little bit like, ugh, a little bit grim and sinister. It's like maybe for the first story you should have started out with something lighter. So that was another bugbear I had. I like the theme tune as well. The very first version of it. The da 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 dun 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 da 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 da. Yeah, it's pretty. It's classic, man. It's classic, and the title sequence as well is classic. For its time, it was probably one of the best things, one of the most interesting things you would have seen on TV. So yeah, William Hartnell's great. I liked how the Doctor, he's not immediately this angelic hero who just jumps in and saves everybody. He's trying to understand humans, and he doesn't quite compute. Like when Barbara and Ian try to help that particular caveman, he's like, why are you doing that? Why don't we just go back to the TARDIS and stuff? Like, he's being a bit of a grumpy old git. He's basically being an arrogant prick. I mean, it's interesting how he's not so likable in this story, or at least not till like the fourth part, till like towards the end when you do really sort of start to see him kind of get involved a bit more when he tries to teach the caveman how to, start a fire. Again, a basic premise, but for the first story, I suppose it works. I don't think the script is anything too inventive. It's perfectly all right for what it is. There's some nice character dynamics, but I don't think there's much of a plot here. I like Susan, and also the fact that her teachers, the fact that she starts out and there's a lot of mystery surrounding her. They all think she's a bit odd, and the two teachers, Barbara and Ian, are obviously very concerned, and they want to go and for her welfare and her state of mind. But little do they know what they're in for. And the ending of this story kind of is obviously setting up for the next one, which would be the Dalek story. which is interesting. I don't think this episode really go down as a classic. Well, only because it's the first one. But other than that reason, nobody has any reason to go back to it. There's nothing remotely remarkable about it. It's just very run of the mill, by the numbers. Like, it's a pretty passable effort, I suppose. But I don't think the show really kickstarted until the next story. This is just my opinion. So if you disagree, that's absolutely fine. I'm not gonna have a row with you. There's no point, I still think, there are good things to it. The music, the title sequence, the direction is pretty good too. There's a lot of intense scenes, so there's a lot of dramatic scenes, so I'll give it props to that. And the shock factor is definitely there. Even though it's maybe an itsy bit too sinister, I do think that the acting is fantastic. The performances are really good. All four of them, and all the cavemen as well do pretty well. You genuinely feel the shock from Barbara and Susan, definitely. Ian obviously is trying to be braver and trying to be strong, and the Doctor doesn't really care at first, but then he gets a bit more involved when he realizes, the stakes. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of affection for it because it's the first story, and you have to appreciate it for what it is. But it's a bit, run of the mill. It's all right, I guess. It's pretty good for what it is. Yeah, but there's nothing really to sing praises for, other than a few positive aspects. And just the idea of the cavemen is just a bit strange. I don't know, like, Doctor Who can do many things. I don't think they will ever revisit this idea again, bringing cavemen back. Maybe for the 100th anniversary. Well, if they ever get that far. I don't know if they will, actually. But, yeah, as a setup, it's pretty damn good. And, William Hartnell is really good. He does a great job at, defining the role for the television. This was to be the beginning of a 50+ years legacy of the same TV show. So yeah, and I love the TARDIS as well. The TARDIS is really cool. That's really all I've got to say. So I'm going to rate An Unearthly Child. I'm going to give it a pass, and I'll say it's a 6 out of 10. Yeah, it's about average, It's nothing. It's not remarkable, but it's not terrible either. There's enough to enjoy, but for me, there's not enough to say it's like good, solid stuff. It's average at best. For the first story, I suppose. But there's a lot of nostalgic value here and a lot of sentimental value. So, I mean, even if you won't like it, it's definitely worth a watch because it is the first story ever made. And to see the evolution of the show and to where we are now, I mean, from An Unearthly Child, all the way to the Return of Doctor Mysterio, there's going to be a clear progression, hopefully. So yeah, that's my review of An Unearthly Child, guys. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Put your comments down below. Let me know. Stay tuned next time when I review the second story called The Daleks. Well, that's going to be a long one. So, until then, guys, thank you all for watching. And as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.